Hey everyone, it's Jeannie, and today I'm sharing a card using Trinity Stamps Seasonings Greetings stamp set. This is a smaller stamp set. It's a 3x3 from the winter release, and I don't think it gets enough credit for being a pretty unique holiday set. You don't really imagine seasonings to be Christmassy, but with all the punny sentiments in this set, it totally makes it a holiday themed stamp set, and I'm using it today to create exactly that. So, the idea behind this card for me was that I had originally imagined all these little seasonings on a shelf. I originally had started out with just one shelf for the seasonings, and it was going to be behind a blended background. But in the end, I decided that I wanted to fill up the card with about three shelves. So one of the shelves is off the card, but you'll see the top of the seasoning bottles. And I just used pencil to draw in. They're not super complicated. It's literally a rectangle. So for the main seasonings, I stamped them out as is. So they have the labels and they have little cute faces on them. For the top seasonings and the bottom seasonings, I actually go ahead and mask. And so I don't mask in a very traditional way because I don't know if it's laziness or it just makes it easier. I use a post-it and I'll go ahead and stamp what I'm masking right onto the post-it. And I'll cut around the post-it as is. So I don't move the post-it at all. I'll just cut where I need to cut and piece it back in, and I'll remove the rest of the post-it when I'm done. So I only leave the mask for the label and the eyes on the card, and then I'll remove the rest of the mask and then stamp. And so it's not super traditional. It's not something that a lot of people do. I don't think I've seen that many people mask the way I do, but it just seems to work for me. And it's something that is really easy to do. And I get it usually perfect every time. The seasoning at the bottom actually has a little bit of the E showing, but I just use a darker color and you can cover it up. You don't even notice it at all, especially in the end product. So I go ahead and do that, and I'm masking all the seasonings because I really, really wanted everyone to focus on the cute little seasonings in the middle. And so when I finish doing all of that, I go ahead and mask everything off. I'm going to add a blended background because I felt like it needed a little bit of color. I definitely did not want to color using my Copics to fill up that background. So I went ahead and used Blending Buddy with some red ink and blended this, and it worked super well. It is using Bristol Smooth paper. So if you've used Bristol Smooth paper, it is very smooth and makes blending so easy. And I really wanted something light and festive. Red definitely reminds me of the holidays. I love red and gold as a combination. And once I finish blending this background to the right color and shade that I want, I go ahead and add water and gold ink splatter. And I think that it really adds interest to the background. It doesn't make it super plain. It just adds a little pizzazz to it, I think. For the water, this particular ink is reactive, so I'm able to lift up those water splatters. For the ink, I'm using metallic ink, and it just makes it really pretty. Red and gold are the perfect holiday combination. I really love it. And once I'm done, I'll remove all the masks. This is my favorite part. And I'll go ahead and use a heat gun just to dry everything off so I can go ahead and color. I do use a Copic friendly marker to outline the shelves just so it matches everything else and it's not looking weird. And I'll be coloring with Copic markers. The Copic marker colors that I will be using will be listed down below in case you're curious. I do use a lot of the same colors. My Copic collection is not extensive, so you'll see a lot of repeated colors, different uses for the same colors. So if you like my color combinations, just look down below. So I color this thinking about soy sauce. And this is how I pick my color palette for this particular card. So if you've been to a Japanese restaurant, you'll know that uh, they have soy sauce, and there's regular sodium and low sodium. And the regular sodium soy sauce is in a red container, and the low sodium soy sauce is in the green. Sometimes I can't tell the difference. I know that the regular sodium is a little bit saltier, but honestly, I don't know. I don't buy into them having a difference between the two, but I usually go for the low sodium just so I know that like my sodium intake isn't super high. But this is how I picked the color palette for this particular card. It's focused around like red, green, and then I'll add in some blues and yellows. And I wanted to incorporate all those colors into the card so it didn't look super random. I didn't want to throw in a purple in there for the heck of it or a pink. So I kept the same colors and I used them for different parts of the seasoning. And so I think that's pretty fun. Um, for this particular set, I had seen it and I was like, that's a little strange. But, you know, I think that because of all the stamp sets that come out around this time, they all have common themes and common critters. And this one's actually fairly unique. I haven't seen seasonings really used in holiday cards. And I think that sometimes it's hard to find something that stands out from the bunch. And although that this is a super small stamp set, I think that you can do quite a bit with it. I obviously had mass to manipulate the stamps, and I've used the original version as well. They're both cute, and I think that even without the holidays, I could use the stamp set to make another card. And I was thinking maybe something like a horizontal card that has them all lined up on a shelf or something like similar. Sometimes I find that the greatest challenge with smaller sets is using them for multiple cards. And I hope that I'm giving you some ideas with this one. I think that you could do a lot with it. I'm coloring pretty simply, but it does take me a bit of time. I've been practicing with my Copic coloring and trying to get a little bit better. I'm considering taking some classes for coloring just to improve. And the thing is, I don't think I've mentioned it before, but I actually work full time. And it's really hard to find time to craft all the time. And it's one of my favorite things to do after I come home from work, and it's a stress reliever for sure. But I do think that I need to practice more with coloring. I'm seeing great inspiration like on Instagram and Facebook, and it just really motivates me to do better. And I've always been a creative person. I've always loved coloring. I've had coloring books when I was a kid and things like that. But I think that I'm going to see maybe for Christmas, I'll ask for some coloring classes. So if you have any recommendations, let me know. I'd be interested to see how you guys practice and how you guys get better at coloring. It's such a vital part of card making, and I know that there are card makers that only use die cuts and only use like scene backgrounds to create things, but like for me, I've really gotten into coloring. So this is where I mess up my card. I picked up a ruler because I wanted to make the shelf outline a little bit darker, and it had water on it. And because of this ink being reactive to water, it messed up my blended background, and I was so mad because basically I just needed to pop on the sentiments and that was it. But here is my fix. And this is also a shout out to anyone who's messed up a card at the very end. It can be fixed. So I just decided instead of trying to blend this out, which wouldn't have worked anyway because the water just messed up the ink blending, I just took a new piece of paper and blended the same red ink on this. And I went ahead and did the water splatters and the gold. I also went and fussy cut my images, which thankfully weren't ruined, but you could have also fixed that by stamping out a few more. It's not a big deal, but I was extremely frustrated because I was basically done with the card. And I know that I'm sure this has happened to a lot of people on several occasions. So it's something that can be fixed. So once I fussy cut everything, I just went ahead and glued it onto the card, almost exactly the same. I think my measurements were a little bit off, but at that point, I just wanted to get this done. So I tried to measure out as much as I could to match what my previous card was and glued it down. And I think that in the end, you can't even tell. It allowed me to change the seasonings at the bottom and where I placed them, even though I think I ended up placing them exactly the same as I did previously. But whatever. So for the sentiments, I just stamped them out on a piece of white cardstock, trimmed them down, and I'm gluing them onto the card. And I was able to salvage this card, and I think that most cards where I have messed up at the very end, I'm able to fix. So there's always a way to do it. So for this card, I trimmed down this panel just a quarter of an inch, and I added a piece of washi, and that just adds a little accent on the side of the card. But that's it for this card, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed my mess up as well, and you've learned some things. So have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.